Hello, and welcome to our very first leveling guide. In this video, we will show you all the information you need to successfully level a witch build that specializes in cold damage over time skills, such as Vortex or Cold Snap. This guide aims to help you with the progression from the first act to the very end of the campaign, regardless of how your final build might look like. Most of the customization and build defining features happen around level 70, but feel free to experiment on your way there. Cold damage over time is quite unique archetype. There are many ways to build a character around this mechanic, with different defenses layers and expectations about the endgame capabilities. Even though those builds vary a lot from each other, leveling process is very similar for all of them. Just by doing quests along the way, you can get up to 20 passive skill point refunds. There are many passive skills that are fairly useful, but just not good enough for your final build. Such passives like additional elemental resistances, attributes, or mana regeneration are usually very close to your skill tree patching and can be a great help during leveling. Witch builds often specialize into energy shield as their main defense. During the leveling, you will have very low amounts of energy shield on your gear, so in those situations it is recommended to take a few maximum life passives to make your leveling much easier. When making a build with cold damage over time as the main theme in mind, you can choose among a few particular skills. They all have their own strengths and weaknesses, or different playstyles, but some skills are just better than others in the early game. We recommend leveling up by using Wintertide Brand as your main skill and Vortex as a secondary damage source. At first, within every act, you will unlock new, more potent support skills, so your setup will change accordingly. To avoid any problems with different socket colors, we recommend using unique armor called Tabula Rasa. It is a very small expense and will save you a lot of time in the long run. Freezing Pulse shot's a cold projectile that pierces through all enemies. You will get this skill when you enter the Lion's Watch for the first time. Its damage decreases with traveled distance, so you want to stand nearby enemies for the maximum damage. Use this skill until you unlock Wintertide Brand. Wintertide Brand is the first cold damage over time skill you can use. You will be rewarded with this skill gem for entering the Caverns of Wrath in Act 1. It is a brand skill that deals increasingly more damage for each stage it gains. When full stages are reached, it releases a big wave that deals maximum damage to all nearby enemies. It is a very strong skill that has both good clear speed and strong single target damage. You can have two brands attached to single enemy by default. Best support gems for this skill can be found in Act 3. Flame Dash is a blink skill that quickly teleports you in a short distance. You can store up to 3 uses. Frost Bomb inflicts cold exposure that reduces cold resistances of affected enemy and reduces life regeneration. It is especially useful in a fight with Oak in Act 2. Steel Skin is a guard skill with a short cooldown that is used to lower the damage you take for a short duration. It doesn't remove bleeding debuffs but disables their damage while it lasts. Clarity is an aura that grants a flat mana regeneration value. Try to keep it at a low level, just enough to cover your mana needs. Vitality works the same way as Clarity, but this time it grants you life regeneration. Higher levels grant more regeneration but cause higher mana reservation. Frostbite is a hex spell that lowers enemies' cold resistances and gives chance to freeze with your hits. Casting it manually will increase its effectiveness over time. Determination Aura grants you a flat amount of armor rating. It is important to have at least one defensive aura during leveling. If your build specializes in evasion rating, use Grace Aura instead. In Act 3 you will get a very powerful skill called Vortex. It is an instant skill with a short cooldown, that leaves the chilling area underneath you when used. For leveling purposes, we recommend using this skill as a damage supplement for your Wintertide Brand. Bone Chill support available at the end of Act 4 increases damage taken by the chilled enemy from every source, including your Wintertide Brand. Your damage mostly comes straightly from passive skill tree, gem levels, and support gems. Having proper links is more important than any modifiers on the items. You will need to get only one form of defense on your rare items, elemental resistances. You should aim to have at least 60% resistance of each element, excluding chaos. To help with that, you should use essences found during the campaign, and the crafting bench in your hideout. Use the low-tier crafting options, as they are cheap and effective. Wands with +1 to level of all cold spell skill gems modifier will give you the most damage and are very cheap to obtain. Other than that, look for increases to cold or spell damage. You can find such a wand on the market for a few chaos orbs with ease, or with a bit of luck, find it yourself in Act 1 as it is a pretty common modifier. There are many unique items that are super helpful during the leveling. Having at least some of them will greatly speed up your journey to the maps. Most notably, Tabula Rasa will grant you easy access to 6-link setup from the very beginning. None of those items are mandatory, it is just faster that way. Remember, you can resell any leveling unique item fairly quickly when you are done using it for the same price you bought it. Tabula Rasa is a 6-link armor that you can wear at level 1 and provides nothing else except raw firepower. You can get a corrupted implicit for additional levels to your main skills. This helmet is packed with elemental resistances. Also can be worn at level 1. It has no attribute requirements, so getting desired socket colors may be a bit tricky. 7 League Step are the best boots you can wear for the entire campaign. They give a massive bonus to movement speed. Avoid Labyrinth's enchant on them, as it increases the level required to use it. Dodre's Tenure give a lot of damage for your spells, but slightly reduce cast speed. Aim for the lowest reduction as it can be quite annoying. La Hup of All is a great all-around ring. It provides everything you need during the leveling, damage, attributes, and elemental resistances. Praxis pretty much solves all your mana problems during the campaign by itself, if you get high rolls on its modifiers. Adrenaline granted by Death Rush gives you 100% increased damage and 20% movement speed for a short duration. Usually requires level 30, but with proper corrupted implicit, it can be worn at level 1, nevertheless, it is quite an expensive luxury. Kikazaru grants very good life and mana regeneration bonus, on top of having attributes and some elemental resistances. With Astramentus Amulet you won't need to worry about getting attributes on your other pieces of gear for the whole campaign. Parandus Blazon Belt offers a decent amount of attributes and makes your flasks last longer. Better uptime on your flasks will greatly speed up your progress. Even though we don't use projectiles, Karui Ward Amulet is a very good choice because it grants useful attributes and a movement speed bonus. You can also use a replica version of this item as it has area damage, but is less common. A String of Servitude can give you a lot of all elemental resistances if it has proper implicit. Combined with the Goldrum Helmet, it will cover all your resistance needs until you defeat the Katava for the first time. Wanderlust are cheap and effective unique boots. Available at level 1, they grant a decent amount of movement speed and immunity to freeze. Proper flask setup makes leveling much quicker and easier. Try to get 2 or 3 Quicksilver flasks so you can have at least one active at all times. Granite Flask is especially useful once you step into Act 5, as there is a very noticeable spike in physical damage dealt by the enemies. You can swap one Quicksilver flask for a Silver flask, which will grant you Onslaught buff for an additional 20% movement speed bonus. 20% quality on each flask is an easy way to prolong their duration. To plan a build, you have to consider which passives are a must for your build and which are optional. Your decisions will greatly affect your damage, defensive layers, and gear choices. To make it easier, we highlighted and ranked some of the most interesting passives that you could use for your build. S-tier passives are one of the best passives for cold damage over time builds. Brand passives are very strong, which is why it's recommended to level up with Wintertide brand and optionally refund them later. Runebinder is the best keystone for any build that uses brands as their main source of damage. By default, you can attach only up to 2 Wintertide brands to an enemy. This keystone does not increase the maximum number of summoned brands. Runesmith cluster is placed right next to the Runebinder keystone. Paired together, it will increase damage taken by an enemy by up to 15%, which is a huge boost. Sovereignty is a very powerful aura notable that provides both mana reservation efficiency and the effect of your auras. Brand equity is another very important notable for your brands. It raises the limit of summoned brands, up to a maximum of 5. Brand duration is also important to ensure it has enough time to get all 20 stages. Breath of Rime is a very powerful passive for all types of cold damage over time skills. Increasing your chill effect is amazing for both defense and offense, as it will increase your bone chill support effectiveness. Influence is a passive that focused purely on increasing aura effectiveness. Its power grows with time, as you can fit more and more auras for your build as you progress through the game. The Tier A passives are also very strong, but they are simply not as impactful as the previous ones. There is a variety of good defensive options here, so try to determine how your build should look in the end and allocate some of them accordingly. The biggest difference comes from whether you choose to use maximum life or energy shield as your main defensive layer. Whispers of Doom allow you to use one additional curse on the enemies, but make sure you have a way to integrate it into your build. Passives included in the Tier B are also good, but they have one problem. They either require a specific setup not suited for every build, or are simply far away from the usual patching, making them quite cost inefficient in those situations. The Pain Attunement and Chaos Inoculation are both meant for energy shield-based builds, but are quite opposite to each other. The first one grants an immense offensive bonus but significantly weakens the defensive, while the latter allows you to forego the chaos resistances completely and invest heavily into the energy shield. Whether you plan to specialize in energy shield or maximum life, during leveling you should take at least one passive cluster with maximum life bonuses. Flat life from its mastery is very strong at low levels. Longer duration granted by damage over time mastery is very important early on to ensure your brands have enough time to accumulate maximum stages. Elemental passives have a very convenient mastery that allows you to pay less attention to your gear when leveling, thanks to the bonus elemental resistances it can grant. Brand mastery has a big impact on your brand's behavior. Attaching to the new enemy improves their coverage and boosts your clear speed significantly. This is everything you need to know to smoothly level up your build. We hope you found this video helpful. As always, stay safe and see you in the next one.